going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 4 live stream for the Valero Texas Open. Going to get you ready for all your prop exposure tomorrow with a look at some of the averages out there from PGA and Live. Let's look at some of the weather out there for Sunday as well as some of the top pieces of exposure on Underdog and Prize Picks that I'll be getting to out there for the final day. And we're going to keep this one a little bit quicker than normal just because I've had quite a bit of a day, long day out there on the road, a little bit of a headache and some dinner that is on its way as well. So it's going to get to all the nitty gritty for you guys. Hop right into the plays right off the bat. Any questions, anything that you guys want me to deep dive, feel free to go ahead and let me know down in the chat. And today we ended up sweeping every single prop that we took. Now, the matchups and that sort of thing was a little bit of a different story, but over there on the Underdog and Prize Pick side, we literally did not miss a prop today. So if you're over there on the Patreon page, hopefully you're able to go out there and take advantage yourselves. And I forget who it was down there in the chat last night, but somebody called it, mentioned that they thought a big day was coming, and I guess they were right about that. You got Gsluke, the first one down there in the live chat. First off, hopefully you're having a great evening yourself. Let's talk about these averages. So Valero Texas Open played a whole lot harder, and same thing on the Live Golf side. It actually got even harder compared to round 1 over there, and it was all the weather at these golf courses. Valero had solid 15, 20 miles an hour sustained winds. Live Golf Miami had close to 20 to 25 miles an hour. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but looking at the forecast for tomorrow, not a lot is going to change. So over here on the stat averages, I don't think they're going to be pretty accurate, I'd say, over there for tomorrow. And maybe they change a little bit out there in specific categories, but they should give us a real good general sense of what to expect. So Valero is probably still going to play over par. Now, maybe it's closer to 1.5 over par if they make some course changes, but you get the general gist, right? It'll be in that 1 to probably 2 over par range. And then with Live Golf Miami, it'll probably be in that 2 to maybe even like 3.5 over par range. So I will say on the Live Golf side, if we take a look at the forecast there, it still looks windy, but maybe a little bit less intense wind than what we had for the first few rounds. So maybe it's closer to that +2 to +2.5 scoring average. But either way, regardless of what event these guys are going to be playing in, it's going to be a pretty tough test out there for tomorrow. And, we're not going to go through every single pin location here together, but I will say this Sunday setup is tricky in spots. Like hole 9 is an extremely difficult pin on the backside of that green. Not only is there a ridge that runs through hole number 9, but that plays about 500 yards and sometimes even into the wind. Holes like 15 are tricky. 17 is a tricky pin location. Now, that's a shorter par 4. They may actually keep it drivable over there for tomorrow, but that is a much harder pin location than what they had on the front side there today. Holes like 12 and 11 are kind of tricky. Already pointed out 9 before, but like 6, 3, even 2, that's a par 5 over there in that back left corner are, I don't want to say all trickier than what you had for today, but they're just as tricky, if not trickier out there in a few cases. So it's your normal round 4 setup. It doesn't look like they're going to go too easy on these players. It is worth noting, though, that last year they did move up the tee at 17 for both rounds 3 and round 4. So there's a chance that they make that drivable, especially because it is such a tough pin location out there towards the back. But even if they do so, right, that's a 0.2 to maybe a 0.3 shot difference if they went out there and did that sort of thing. So as I was mentioning off the bat, these should be pretty accurate out there for tomorrow. Which, speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about some of our exposure. So first few props that I took out there for tomorrow would be first off this Beau Hossler over. So that's over there on the PGA side. And then another fade over there for Live. So that would be Jason Kokrak at 73.5 strokes. So let's start with Beau Hossler first. So the reason why I like the Hossler fade, it has to come down to these shots gained metrics. And if you guys watched the Showdown stream earlier on this evening, that of course is over there on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. Of course, I still do all my own projections, all my own player pool stuff as well over there on my website. Patreon page is where you can find the entire Showdown pool. But Hossler, as I was mentioning, going through my process a little bit earlier, this week, it's been all the putter for him. He's gained nearly 7 strokes over there in that category. Every other category, he's a negative to the field. So at this point of the week, right, he's kind of just skating on thin ice, right? There's pretty much no reason that he should be in the top 20 at this point. And with a scoring average that I think will be at least about 73 strokes, if not closer to 73.5, he would have to gain 1.5, even 2 strokes out there to the field average to be able to cover this sort of line and shoot even par. So I'll fade that all day, especially since he's been so dependent over there on that putter. And then on the Live Golf side, Kokrak's also been playing solid golf. So if we take a look at the leaderboard, he's here at T20, which is a little bit worse than like the equivalent of T20 28 over there for PGA. He's a little bit further down the board because they only have 54 guys in the field. but he's been making a ton of birdies. And you may say, like, why is that a negative? It's that he's been putting well above his baseline. And we don't have the same kind of shots gain metrics for Liv as we do over there for, let's say, the Valero. But we can take a look at some of the birdies that he's been making and tell that he's probably been making a lot of 15 to 20 footers. And earlier I went through almost all these birdies that you can see on here, and a lot of them were from 10 plus feet. And over there on the same round on, I guess it was Friday for round number 1, it was the same thing. He had 5 birdies, and a majority of these were longer putts, and that's not really something that you can rely on for every single round. And what you'll see is that he was still making mistakes, right? First day, shot +1 despite having 5 birdies. Round number 2, he shot +3 despite having 5 birdies on the round. Imagine what happens when you don't get all those putts to drop out there for birdie. So that's the idea with Kokrak, is that he's averaging a +2 round at this point, but that's 74 strokes at around a par 72. But I think he's due for some negative regression over there with the putter, with how many birdie putts he's been getting to drop. And if that happens, that's not going to be a good thing out there for his chances going forward. So it's partially because the weather forecast looks pretty dicey again, but also the fact that Kokrak, if you take a look at his track record over there on the Live Tour, is about an average to below average player most weeks. So he's not the kind of guy that's really used to finishing in that top 10, top 15, not the kind of guy that you'd expect to gain strokes to the field in like 2 of the 3 rounds. I think that he's had a solid start. It's one of the better weeks that he's had here in 2025, but round 3, Sunday over there on the Live Golf side, could be where you see some of that negative regression. And the reason why I like mixing in both sides at the same time is that you can get a 3x payout, right? You get those anti-correlation boosts out there on these sites. Like, for example, if we had 2 overs from PGA, this would only be a 2.5x payout. But because we go out there and mix in both different events, it's going to be that full 3x payout for a 2x card. So that's the idea over there on Prize Picks. Underdog's going to have a lot of the same props. They didn't have the Live Golf board posted when I was checking earlier, but they did post it out there for the first few rounds. And speaking of, they usually go out there and just copy and paste it. So I think it's going to be, available at the same exact lines over here on Underdog. So if you guys are looking to get a piece of exposure out there on either sites, you're going to have the same exact lines and the same exact payout available, regardless of which one that you choose. So that's going to be the free piece of exposure that we have over here for round number 4. Of course, guys, for every single slip, every single prop I'm taking for any given round, you guys can find that over there on my Patreon page. Not only do I have my Draftkings projections, player poll, all of that out there for Sunday, but also the reasoning and all the projections, like all these, stat averages I post as soon as the round ends out there for every single event. I post the weather reports over there for my Patreon members too. For everything else that I'm doing over there for Sunday, that's where you can find all of that exposure. But as I was saying before, I'm dealing with a little bit of a migraine over here, so we're going to keep this moving rather quickly. Let me see if there's any questions about props down there in the live chat. Then afterwards, we're going to talk about some matchups real quickly and wrap this thing up. So what's going on? Barry says, great day on Prize Picks. Thanks. He hit 15 slips. Good stuff, man. That's 15 slips. That sounds like a heck of return there. Good stuff. You say, hey, Luke, just with the Patreon. Thanks for all my work. Of course, Steven, glad to have you on board, by the way. People joining the Patreon like Steven lets me do this. What lets me go out here, put out free content for the people. Obviously, the Patreon gives you some extra access, a lot of value from that aspect. But it helps support what I'm doing here. So I appreciate you, Steven, and glad to have you on board. Who can make a run and win it? So, if we're looking at the leaderboard, that's a really good question, I would say. I mean, it's going to be tough to go and run down a Brian Harman. I wouldn't go past like -9, -8. The reason being the tough conditions. I mean, it's playing nearly 2 strokes over par. I think you had like less than 10 people go out there and shoot under par today. I mean, shooting like a -4 round would be immaculate out there for Sunday, especially if they're not moving around a lot of these different tee boxes. That's why I wouldn't go that far back if you're trying to find a winner. So I think that Brian Harman's going to win, just for full transparency. But if you were going to take a chaser, maybe these guys from T5 or better are what I would limit your search to, just because with conditions like that, there are guys that are a little bit too far back. Then you said, you're looking for a little Fanduel play on that. Let me look at Fanduel. So over here in Fanduel, we have the outright odds that we could look at. If you were just trying to bet somebody, for a little sweat, hope that they can have a nuclear round, Tom Hoge at +900 is probably what I would bet. I'm not going to do it myself. I just don't see a need to go out there and take a shot on a player at this point. But if I was going to, Tom Hoge at +900 would be my choice. He's a good wind player. not plus 900 is a lot better than that plus 450, right? You're getting there with an Andrew Novak. Was he 2 shots behind? Sorry, 1 shot behind Andrew Novak, starting at -8 as opposed to -9. Yeah, that's probably where I would go if I was only betting on the FanDuel side. But yeah, that's a tough one, man. Brian Harman, he looks like a killer this week, that's for sure. Oh, it doesn't have to be an hour. You mean any FanDuel play? Yeah, see if they have the Bo Hostler one up there, T-Money. Maybe they have them up there at 72.5 strokes. That would be my go-to. Maybe some live golf stuff too. I can't see the full FanDuel board because I'm in a state where they don't operate, but those would be the main ones I'd look at, T-Money. And I'm going to have some other props that I post over there on the Patreon page. You can check those out for some even extra exposure. But in terms of matchups, what I'm normally looking for, and we're not going to actually find any here on stream. I've got to get out of here real quickly, as I was mentioning before. But it's always ball strikers going against guys that are maybe struggling out there with the ball striking. So I know we already kind of picked on Bo Hostler, so I don't want to like overdo it. But he's the favorite in this 3-ball versus Doug Ghim and Goodwin. I know Goodwin's ball striking has been pretty solid this week. Let me see what we have with Doug Ghim. So Gim's been okay. I mean, Tee to green, he's gaining in those 3 categories, but then losing over there with the putter. Today in particular, it was the same exact thing, right? Gaining in those 3 categories and then losing with the putter. I mean, I wouldn't be against like a Doug Ghim bet here over there at plus 150, but, you know, I don't like doubling up on my exposure. You know, when I fade somebody like Bo in one piece or one bet, I usually try not to attack them in other pieces. But let's say you can't play on like Prize Picks Underdog. This would be a good way to go out there and get some exposure. Now, Goodwin, I did say his stats looked pretty good this week as well. That was up until today, and I still think he was solid round 3. He was actually about neutral in all 4 categories. But rounds 1 and 2, if you just take a look at the event as a whole, ball striking has been on point for the young newcomer on tour. So, yeah, I'd probably lean towards a Doug Ghim on that bet, but Goodwin kind of scares me there at plus 240. In fact, I guess you could make an argument for betting the long shot at plus 240, especially with how well he's been hitting the ball. But if you go through these other matchups, right, it's trying to use these shots gain metrics to our advantage. As I said, trying to find guys that are maybe struggling out there hitting the ball, going against guys that have been a little bit more on point with it. And I never bet guys that are like plus 105 or minus 110. There's just no point in betting a 3-ball at those sort of odds. I'm more so looking for guys usually like plus 130 or longer. It's worth noting, by the way, that FanDuel usually has the best odds when it comes to a lot of these matchups. So if you go to the 3-ball section, these are just the head-to-head matchups, I guess, out there in that category. But when they have the 3 balls all loaded in, you sometimes get slightly better odds over here on FanDuel. So that's normally my strategy. And just to go through the shots gained from round number 3, you can use the full event. I think that's a good way to go through some of these. We were showing off the matchup tool yesterday, by the way. So if you guys were here yesterday, you probably saw this on live stream. But like if you put in Bo Hostler, you put in Ghim and then Goodwin into this matchup over here, you can get a direct comparison on all these different players directly at your fingertips. So I would say the best way to attack this matchup market is to have this tool over here on Bet the Number, which, by the way, code Gsluke when you're signing up will give you a free trial over there. So if you guys just want to try out the tools on Bet the Number, that's a really good way to do so. And you can flip around with a lot of these different matchups over here. You can fit all 3 of them into this tool. That's the best part about it, right? It's not just head-to-heads, but you can also do the 3-leg matchups over here in this kind of tool and just do some line shopping, right? Try and find some ball strikers that are going against guys who are maybe struggling over there with the putter. That's what I do. I usually go over here onto this matchup tool. It makes my life a lot easier being able to sort that kind of data. And this is for the full event that we have up right now. But like, if you only wanted to look at round 3, you could just click round 3, right? It imports that data for you. So just saves you some time rather than having to go through each player, each round, that kind of thing, and do your analysis. You can just look at it round by round, look at it over the entire event if you want to. That's what I would do over there for your matchup exposure. So again, guys, I apologize that this video is going to be a little bit shorter out there than usual, but I'd rather do a piece of content than not do one for you guys, right? I'd rather do it a little bit shorter, kind of just cut to the chase, get to the point real quickly, than not do anything at all, right? So it's hopefully you guys understand out there, and we can go out there and have ourselves a solid end to the week. Best of luck out there with all of your exposure for Sunday. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and also subscribe for all the content throughout the rest of the year. Of course, next week we've got the Masters going on, so we'll be covering that fully over here on the channel. We're gonna have DFS stuff up for that all the entire week, so keep an eye out for the course breakdown first, dropping out there tomorrow morning, or that'll probably be Monday morning over there with the course breakdown, and all the rest of the stuff out there throughout the week. That's all I've got. Best of luck, as I was mentioning, and I'll see you guys out there next week.